La següent presentació és de l'Institut de Recerca en Economia, el BIT, i tenim un ponent remot que el doctor Wagen presentarà ara mateix. El veurem per aquí, em sembla? Doncs tu mateix.
Hola, bona tarda a tothom. Hello, good afternoon all. I'm Wagen Gerbashian. I'm from the Barcelona Economic Analysis team. We have invited Will Leckie from Nous. We are very happy to have him with us. I'm sorry, I'll take my mask on. Perhaps you'll hear me better with this without the mask. So we are very happy to have Will Leckie with us from Nous, albeit virtually. So Nous is a specialized space economics consultancy founded in 2019, and it's based in the UK and Ireland. Nous works with public and private clients, so across all the value chains of the space industry. Its current projects include studies of for a European Space Agency, about the socioeconomic benefits of technology transfer. It has also studies on market evaluation as well as in general impacts of technologies and space. So I'll give the floor to Will, who will speak about the particular case of the UK and speak about the research about the economic impact of space industry in the UK and particular researchers and their activities in the space industry in the UK. Will, the floor is yours. Thank you very much again for accepting our invitation.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Farhan, for the excellent introduction. It's a shame this has to be virtual. It would be very nice to be in Barcelona right now rather than the cloud and rain of London, but here we are. Pleasure to be here. So let me first of all share my screen. All right. Great. So this is full screen, so please interrupt me if you are not able to see this, but I will assume everything is working. Today I'm going to talk about the socioeconomic impact of space science and exploration missions, building off some recent research we have done for clients in the UK. I think it ties in nicely with really interesting presentations like Stefan's one, the last one. In some ways what we do is helps to get the money for the the really exciting stuff. So how can we sell this to the people who hold the money? So today I will give a brief introduction to our company, Nous. I will talk about some of our research that is relevant for this topic and the results from that, and conclude with a quick summary. So without further ado, about us very briefly. So as Farhan said, sorry if I mispronounce your name, we were founded in late 2019, so we're something of a startup. We aim to provide authoritative economic knowledge for the space sector. We work with a range of clients across public and private sectors. And really, so my background, I worked as a civil servant in public administration for 10 years in the UK and in Brussels. The other co-founder led a private space consultancy space team, so a mix of public and private. We work with a very wide range of clients across Europe. So some of our biggest ones are the European Space Agency, ESA, and the European Union Agency for the Space Programme, formerly known as the GSA. As I live in London, we do lots of work with UK clients, but we're keen to expand that to do more European work. We're also registered in Ireland, so we can escape the worst effects of the terrible event of EU exit from the EU. But yes, here we are. So wide range of clients, universities, businesses, administration, and European agencies. So then let me talk a bit about the research more specifically. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to present every word of this slide, but I think it's a really important one for me. when we talk about the socioeconomic impact of any mission, whether it's space science, exploration, meteorology, navigation, telecoms, whatever it is, there are many different elements to what we call the space economy or space industry. I think the space economy is something a bit wider than the industry. But so we have of course, we have all the activity with the manufacturing, the building the satellites, and operations of launching the satellites and running the process, space surveillance and tracking, making sure you don't crash into anything, and so on and so forth. Then the application side of using the data on the ground for whatever purpose this may be. But none of this can happen without the supportive environment at the top of the right regulatory environment, the right policy, having the right finance there, of course, and then ancillary services, similar legal, insurance. I think we fit in the consultancy bit. But then on the very left hand, you have the supporting technology. Okay, space is maybe nearly a vacuum, but the space sector is definitely not a vacuum. Technology flows in from other sectors and flows out. So there's strong links there. And all of this enables what we have on the right-hand side, which is these services and activities, both in near Earth orbits and beyond Earth orbit. So really to take this point a bit further, I think a lot of attention is often paid to the contracts which firms get to build satellites and operate satellites. And you see news stories, Airbus wins €200 million contract to build this mission. Yeah, it's great. It's very important. It's jobs, it's revenues, it's capabilities. But actually, we mustn't lose the focus on the point. All of these satellites, all of these spacecraft, all of these science missions are there for a reason, to provide the data, of course, and then we use it. And we did a study, again, for the UK, but I think maybe it's generalizable, that the space industry supports 50 times its output in terms of wider economic activity. So more specifically then, to bring back to the topic of today, we completed a research study for the UK's Space Academic Network, known as SPAN. It was a fairly short project. We did this in the winter and spring of this year. It was published maybe 2 months ago. Now, broadly speaking, the scope of the study was everything looking away from Earth and not towards. So we didn't look at Earth observation, remote sensing, there's hugely important scientific applications there, understanding climate change, weather, etc., and the nature of the Earth. But the focus of this study was looking away from the Earth at the solar system and beyond. And we conducted a number of interviews with leading figures in the space science community, and then lots of test-based research to understand impact better. Let me dive then into the results. So really the study was in 2 parts. One part was mapping the sector, which is probably less of interest to the audience today. So I won't spend so much time. And the second part, which I will spend more time on, is on the impact, because I think this is not specific to the UK. This is about general routes to impact, which apply to any space science research, and actually a lot of science research more generally. But just briefly then on the mapping, we were actually surprised. So more universities than we would have guessed. We would have said maybe 20, 30 universities in the UK with some space science research function. Actually, it was more than 50, and we found more than 2,000 researchers at postdoctoral level or above who are engaged in some sort of space science research, even if just 1 day a week, okay, for sure. But yeah, it's a big community with many wider networks as well. The impact is what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the time. But yes, many different themes of impact and good evidence of high return. So I usually like to be the first person to say, even though my background is economics, that it's not all about the money. You cannot quantify or monetize all the benefits. Of course, I am, as we say in English, preaching to the choir. With many of you who are researchers, impact is much broader than the money. We can't just say how many euros did we get back for each euro we invest? But still, there's a demand. So yeah, and we found some good evidence on this front. So while recognizing it's wider, still we found some evidence that maybe €6 return per €1 invested on average. It's very broad. That was not a new piece of research we did in the study. It was the other co-founder of No Space, Greg Sadlier. He did the study on return on public space investments for the UK Space Agency, which is where it comes from. But the interesting bit, I think any number is wrong. It's spuriously accurate. But the interesting bit for me is that actually a lot of this comes from this, what we call the spillover benefits. So not the direct benefits. It's the often unpredictable effects that come in. So space missions, space science missions in particular, operate at the very cutting edge of technical capabilities. You know, new instruments are designed, new materials are developed. This generates new knowledge that can be applied elsewhere in the space sector, elsewhere in the economy, and often unpredictably, as we'll come to. Of course, there's also a theme of very long timeframes to impact. So, you know, if we look at navigation, GNSS, Global Navigation Satellite Systems now, you know, this depends on Einstein's research 100 years ago, atomic clock research over 60 years ago, and that's very central to where we are today. So one of the themes of the reports was cautioning against an overly short-term focus on the benefits. So one way to look at the impact is through the life cycle of a mission. Now, firstly, we have all the activity associated with the design, manufacture, launch, and operations. And maybe to use the analogy before, this is the laying the cables and digging the trenches for the internet. But actually, as I say, you know, I wouldn't want to undersell this, because this is the cutting edge capabilities, techniques, which have many wider benefits. And this creates the jobs, the revenues, the capabilities. It improves competitiveness and skills. It boosts the wider industry, supporting services, brings in private funding as well. So a major source of impact. And then as we move to the data and knowledge, okay, it depends on the mission, but we get new products and services derived from the mission, which, you know, can help improve productivity and efficiency, or environmental benefits, or well-being, whatever else it might be, depending on the mission. And then, of course, there's the point of doing it, as I say, the scientific advances. Now, publications are a proxy for impact. I think it is fair to say a publication does not have so much intrinsic value by itself, but it is the knowledge contained within it. But of course, we can look at that through publications. Sometimes, as we look at the technological spillovers, there may be patents and new products, new services developed. Missions can help set future priorities and have impact on policy, lead to new collaborations, attract new researchers, and inspire both children and adults to be interested in this. And I think a core point was from our interviews was that people in wider society really value fundamental understanding of the universe. So that is the intrinsic value. It's not all about economic return. So it's, of course, this may sound like an obvious point, but many people in the treasury or other places may say, well, how much money will we get for the return? How much return will we get for this? We could be building schools and hospitals or roads. So of course we need to justify. And there is also a sort of soft power, as you say, a diplomatic angle to many missions as well. So while citations and publications are a flawed measure of impact, they are a measure, not the measure, but a measure. First of all, I would like to apologize for Spain not being on this chart. I had a look yesterday to see if I could include it, but unfortunately I don't have the data. Here, a score of 1.0 is what you would expect a country to score, essentially. You can see many European countries really having high citation impact. So that's the ratio of citations received to citations expected. So a strong European role there. I talked a bit about the importance of spillovers. Now, these sort of wider impacts, these can be, we can further break them down to within space science. So missions help inform future missions, instruments can be applied elsewhere, and the usual story of skills. Within the wider space economy, it helps to grow the wider sector. I think there is a really interesting point that came up from a lot of astronomy missions, where the challenge is often looking for a weak signal in large noise. Now, this is not a challenge that is unique to space science or astronomy. It's something, there are direct applications to Earth observation, trying to find what's happening. You have imagery all over the Earth. We need to find, let's say, a forest fire or a flood or whatever else it might be, a weak signal, large noise. So same sort of challenges. So within the space economy, but also the wider economy and society. To take the same example, finance, often the challenge is weak signal, large noise. So actually, when you get down to it, it's just maths. So applying new techniques there, as well as a whole variety of new products and services. And we found many examples of these in different sectors. I think maybe it's best to show with an example or two. So I have two from ESA missions. So firstly, the ExoMars mission. So the rover this is a robotic exploration mission to Mars, as many of you will know. The ExoMars rover is being built in the UK. Now, these spillovers, I mean, huge, just really unexpected often. So they range from robotic transportation in airports for frail and elderly passengers, software systems for lifeboats to save people at sea, nuclear waste investigation, water pipe cleaning, oil and gas exploration, in medicines and melanoma detection, and in steel production, defect identification. Now, of course, ExoMars isn't the only factor playing into these, but all techniques have applied to all of these areas. And then I like this example on the right. It's a bit more, it's more fun. So you may remember the Rosetta mission, where we landed, European Space Agency landed a probe about the size of a washing machine, perhaps, on the comet. And then the spectroscopy, the sort of comet sniffing techniques, actually, they've been applied in the whiskey industry to say, is what is in the bottle what it says it is, or is it counterfeit? And this helps protect exports, and I think is also being used in the wine industry as well. So I had to use whiskey because I have Scottish family. So, and it's a very good bottle. Okay, so very quickly, as I'm almost out of time, but Gaia mapping over 1 billion stars in the Milky Way. We're seeing 6 publications a day on average from this mission. So incredible amount of knowledge being produced there. It's pushing the boundaries of our understanding. And again, this common theme of applications elsewhere. Now, it's early days for the mission. So in many ways, we'll continue to see impacts materializing over the next 10, 20 years, and probably even beyond, no doubt. So we look at this in more detail in the report. Yeah, and again, it's not just the economic benefit. The title of this presentation is Economic Benefit, but all of these wider factors. There's the intrinsic value of knowledge, the reason for doing it, the cultural impact, the inspirational impact, the strategic and diplomatic angle. It develops skills and improves productivity and generates new technologies. So I think that's about it. In summary, you can see the reports. There is a link in the bottom right. Really, it's a bigger community than we thought in the UK. I'm sure the same is true elsewhere. It's not all about the money, but there's high return on investment. Success leads to more success. Okay, we have to take a long time frame. Let's not forget the spillover benefits. And this is something we often really stress to ESA, to others. They should be thought of as core to the mission because they're so sizable. And there are many different themes of benefits. So yeah, that is it really. If you do want to get in contact, details are there. Our company, feel free to drop me an email. There is our Twitter, and we're on LinkedIn too. But yeah, thank you very much.
Pots sentir?
Yeah. Is it good? Can you hear me, Will?
Yes, it's back now.
Thank you. Again, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Thank you very much for your wonderful talk. I mean, as an economist, I'm not only interested in pecuniary, monetary parts, but as well as non-pecuniary. So I'm curious whether, I mean, there are studies of space, new space, in general, whatever it generates in terms of non-pecuniary benefits to the public. So technically, in terms of research, whether there is an evidence of spillovers to other faculties, whether the publications per se are generating publications in other fields, adjacent to or even further away, etc. Have you looked at this particular margin or no? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think there are there are some studies out there that have looked at this for within the UK, for the European Space Agency, for the European Commission, and within individual countries. I mean, really, it is quite a slow process of building up this evidence base. We really need to factor this in to the design of each program from the beginning, to collect the data to enable this to be tracked over time. And if this isn't done, then we reach the end of the funding and we say, well, what did we get? And often people move on and we lose this impact. So it is something that can be a challenge and needs to be thought of from the start. I think there is quite good evidence out there, but I think sometimes organizations, our good friends at ESA, I would never be critical, because the work is fantastic and they really work to support the member states. But the member states often demand information: has the space industry received the economic return? Have they got the contracts? But actually, as I tried to say, this impact story is so much wider. So we need to keep reminding people, I would say.
On the Gaia mission, and I'm happy to see you mention Gaia. So thank you. And even I may contact you to ask for more details, because we have to convince the funding authorities to extend Gaia for the next 5 years. So thanks a lot for that.